Hey, what's up guys? Scott here, back once more with another video. Well, today I'm going to be reviewing the newest Marvel film, Spider-Man Brand New Day, which just came out this past weekend. I've seen it twice now, so I think I've had enough time to gather my overall thoughts. So, alright, well let's start out right off the gate. Oh, and I will be talking major spoilers. This is a spoiler review, so... that being said, I'll start with this. Overall, I enjoyed the movie. I think it was a good, solid movie. Definitely not a perfect movie. I wouldn't even say a great movie because it does have some flaws, but it's a good movie with flaws. I definitely would recommend it. It has a good arc for Peter Parker and the other characters involved, which we'll get into in a minute. Let's be honest, No Way Home was going to be such a tough act to follow because that movie had the return of Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, all those villains. You know, that movie was an event, almost like a once-in-a-lifetime event. You know, so that was going to be such a tough act to follow. I totally get that. But overall, this is a solid Spider-Man movie. But it does have some flaws. So, I'm going to give my overall rating an 8 out of 10. After seeing it a second time, I did notice the flaws a little more. But I will stick with an 8 out of 10. Definitely recommend it. So, definitely worth your time to go see it at the theater. Okay, now that I've kind of gone over that, now we're getting into spoilers. So, the biggest spoiler about the movie that's been hidden from the marketing, but has been widely out there for a while, is that Jean Grey makes her Marvel MCU debut in this movie. Played by Sadie Sink, and it had been reported like over a year ago, maybe almost 2 years ago, that she was in talks to be Jean Grey in the MCU. So when she was cast in this movie, everyone was thinking she was Jean Grey, and then it was leaked that she was Jean Grey, but it was never officially confirmed until the movie came out. So that's the biggest spoiler, So anyway, Jean Grey is a big part of this movie. She's the primary antagonistic force for most of the movie. And I will say, that's one of the flaws of this movie, is that all the other live-action Spider-Man movies, he's always been fighting a classic villain of his. Like, in Tobey Maguire's trilogy, he fought Green Goblin, Doc Ock, and Venom and Sandman. In Andrew Garfield's The Amazing Spider-Man movies, he fought Lizard, and then he fought Electro and the Green Goblin in the sequel. Tom Holland's movies so far, first one he fought Vulture, second one Mysterio, third one he had the return of all those classic villains, which were still Spider-Man villains. So this is the first ever live-action Spider-Man movie where the main antagonist is not a classic Spider-Man villain. Jean Grey is the primary antagonist for most of the movie. She's the one causing all the trouble that Peter has to deal with. So anyway, what she's doing is she's mind controlling different people to try to get what she wants. And so now classic villains do make an appearance. In the opening montage, we see Tombstone, and a couple others. I can't remember the names off the bat, but and Scorpion is in this movie for 2 scenes, and that's it. And he's a classic Spider-Man villain. So all the Spider-Man villains in this movie has very small roles. So I would say that's one flaw I have with the movie, is that the main antagonist was not a classic Spider-Man villain. I think they could have still used Jean Grey easily, but have her... if I'm so smart, I should make my own movie, right? But still, you broke the formula that worked 1,000 times before, And for me, it caused a big flaw in this movie, that the big foe that Peter's fighting was not one of his classic villains. So, anyway, so I think they still could have used Jean Grey easily to help Spider-Man fight one of his classic villains, whether it be Scorpion, the Jackal, Tombstone, who are all extremely powerful and would have taken help for Spider-Man to beat. So, that's why I knock a couple of points off already, because having your main villain or antagonist not be a classic Spider-Man villain. So, but that being said, the story that's told is still good and engaging. It gives Peter Parker a good arc, after the events of No Way Home, where no one remembers him. His best friends and the love of his life don't remember him. He's struggling with loneliness and stuff. And that feeds into the narrative, because there's one part where Jean Grey takes control of MJ, and makes Peter think that she's remembering him, but then they find out she's just being mind controlled, which is a very intense scene. So that there's definitely some good stuff in this movie. For Peter Parker has a good arc where he kind of overcomes his loneliness. I wouldn't say completely overcomes, but learns to start anew, and he's going to start rebuilding relationships with people again. Let's talk about Punisher. I thought Punisher was used really good in this movie. I think he had a good arc in this movie, and he contributed to the story. He kind of clashes with Spider-Man on their morals and how they deal with crime, but they still get along pretty well. They work together a lot, so that made for a good dynamic. And then by the end, he grows as a character as he sees what Peter and Jean go through. And so I liked Punisher was definitely relevant and good in this movie. Jean Grey herself. So I like the character Jean Grey. I'm excited she's finally in the MCU. But her arc in the movie, I don't know. She definitely does some bad stuff, but once you find out that her motivation is to find her sister, who Damage Control kidnapped and experimented on and ultimately ended up killing, you can totally understand why she's pissed. So Jean has a good arc in the sense that she, at the end, Peter is able to talk her down, and she helps save his life when he gets shot, and then she just leaves. So I like her so far, but I need to see more of Jean. I need to see her arc continue in these upcoming movies, because she's confirmed to be in the upcoming Avengers movies. But for this video, I just want to strictly focus on Spider-Man. But I need to see Jean's arc, more of her, to give a full judgment how she ends this saga out. So anyway, overall, I think Jean Grey was introduced and used effectively in the story overall. So the two characters that I think were not really needed in this story were, let's start with Bruce Banner Hulk. It was cool to see him, but he really doesn't contribute much to the story, really. He kind of just appears in a couple scenes and then goes into Hulk mode I understood his purpose. The scenes he was in, he was used, he did contribute, but the story could have still happened without him, I think overall. So Hulk was kind of wasted, I think, overall. Now Yelena's in this movie in two dialogue scenes. She has 2 cameos, so I guess more of a supporting role, because she is in 2 pretty extended scenes, but they're just dialogues. They're just dialogue scenes. She just gives Peter information. I would have loved to have seen Yelena in her widow outfit helping him fight one of the villains in one of the scenes, and she could still have the dialogue scenes, but have her contribute to the action. And I love Yelena. She's one of my new favorites, but she was kind of a wasted character in this movie, to be honest, and I will admit that. So, but it was still cool to see her, but she could have done a lot more, help Peter fight one of the villains or help out in the final battle, whatever. She could have done more. But anyway, so Hulk and Yelena, I think overall were kind of wasted in the movie, although it was cool to see them. But so I guess my final thoughts. I'm kind of frustrated that the main villain of the movie wasn't a classic Spider-Man villain, and I think that would have helped the story a lot overall for my enjoyment. But the story of what we got, I think it introduced and used Jean Grey effectively. Peter still had a good arc. Spider-Man still had a good arc. And I think Punisher had a good arc in the movie. And I think the way it ends up, I'm excited to see what happens with these characters next. And that's good. So I give it all overall an 8 out of 10. My main thing is I guess I wish the story and villain would have been a classic Spider-Man villain as the main villain, and then Jean Grey and Punisher and Spider-Man and the others team up to stop that. That would have been a better story, in my opinion. And you could still introduce and use Jean Grey very effectively. Same with Punisher, too. So, anyways, despite a couple of flaws with the story, I think, I think overall 8 out of 10 is a fair score. I enjoyed it. I'd recommend it, and I'm excited to see what happens with these characters in this saga next. So, all right, thank you so much for watching, guys. Stay tuned and peace out.